a postage stamp would have better adhesion than this. Hello and welcome back to my project SUV, which is my 2001 Nissan Pathfinder. And if you haven't watched the other videos, be sure to do that now. The link is in the info card above here for the latest video. And in today's video, I'm going to actually try my first ever attempt at soda blasting, and that is trying to remove the surface rust on the vehicle, and hopefully with any luck it will turn out pretty well. Start off with the soda blasting. I'm actually going to try with the wiper arms first. I feel like that'd be a really easy thing to do because they are, not that important, and I'm not removing rust per se, but I'm just removing the paint just to kind of give them a nice, fresh start. So this will be a lot of fun, I'm sure. And I'm going to also use a mask here for protection, and then some earplugs as well. So about 5 minutes into soda blasting the wiper arms, the old compressor that I was using finally gave up the ghost. So unfortunately that led to a bit of delay and actually a number of days where I didn't have a compressor, so therefore I couldn't do any more soda blasting. So I finally got a new compressor sorted, and I can actually continue on with blasting. And I actually decided to switch out the blasting media as well, because the next thing I'm actually going to try and attempt is actually the wheel arches in all this area where it's a bit more heavy, and unfortunately soda blasting I don't think will cut it. So I'm going to switch out to glass bead blasting media, and that should help out with this heavier stuff. Before I go any further with the sandblasting, I'm actually going to take off the rear spring and the shock absorber, because what I noticed is that there was quite a bit of rust actually hidden where the spring, at least the top of it, meets the vehicle. So I want to take that off and hit that area as well. And again, I'm going to be replacing this in the future, so it's not a big deal. As always, I put a little bit of penetrant on all these bolts just so that way it'll make it easier to take them off. And for the bottom one I'm going to start with first, that one's a 22 millimeter. So I'm going to put that on there, use the braking bar. And there we go, it comes off pretty easily. Removing the top bolt. This one here on this side is a 19 millimeter, and then this one here is a 17. As you can see, this is where the spring was, and look at all the rust that's there. You know, this is really important to treat this area as well, because I could not sleep at night knowing there's this much rust here. Another note here, look at the bump stop. Look how much has just perished away. I will be getting all new bump stops for the rear. The only thing holding this bump stop in is a 12 millimeter bolt, so I'm going to use a socket here. You might want to use a long one if you're going to do this at home. And there you go. And then now I can just take it off. To no surprise, the bolt snapped when I was trying to take off the bump stop, but that's not the only bolt that's broken on this vehicle, so not surprised at all. But I will try on the other side, and hopefully that one will come off a little bit more easily. As you can see, this side is not nearly as bad as the other side in terms of rust. There still is some here near the bump stop, but hopefully when I go to take it off, that the bolt won't snap. Come on, baby. Gentle. There we go, came off without breaking, but as you can see, look at all the corrosion right there. I'm surprised it actually didn't snap, but thankful it didn't. I finished sandblasting, and I didn't want to film a lot of it, especially during the process, because my cameras couldn't get close enough without getting blasting media stuck in the lens, so I decided to stop and actually just kind of show you before and after. Now moving on to the next part that I have to do, and that is still sanding, but it's by hand. Like areas like the rocker panel here, that will be done by hand, and as well as the wheel arches.
A few minutes later.
Yeah, it's completely rotten away, rust inside and out. And this would have had to been done, because if I just patch this up, it would just continue to rust again. I'd have the same problem. Before I continue any further, I just want to point out the fact that I'm not a professional auto body mechanic, and I've never done any of this kind of stuff before in my entire life. And this is the first ever real experience that I've had doing this. So before you start commenting about how it should be done and you did this wrong, I did that wrong, well, again, never done it before, just learning off of basically what everyone else has kind of done. So what I've actually done is sanded this down to bare metal all around the outside to get rid of all the rust. And then on the inside, I applied rust converter all throughout the inside of the rocker. And then once that was done, I then applied 2 coats of rust paint just to help prevent rust from coming back in the future. Hopefully it will work, but I'll probably never find out. In the next part, I'm actually going to be using one of these little mesh pads here, which I've cut out already to fit the size of this hole. And I'm actually going to use some fiberglass and then fill the hole in using this in the fiberglass and then sand that down. And then I'll use some more glazing putty / Bondo to get the nice kind of smoother finish. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to make do with what I have here, and I don't have a fancy glue gun or Gorilla Glue or something to hold this in place. I'm just going to have to kind of just keep it like this and then use some of the fiberglass, do kind of half of it and then the other half of it. So after filing for a little bit, it's turned out quite well so far. Of course, there is still quite a bit of a difference. And as you can see, the high spots right here where I filed it, and then the low spots where obviously the file hasn't even reached yet. So I am going to hit this with a sander and actually just sand it down, and then I'll show you afterwards. All right, I'm going to hit this spot here with the sander. I'm going to try using an orbital sander and a 60 grit piece of sandpaper just to get rid of the excess fiberglass material right here. And of course, I am going to be using my full face mask because I don't want to breathe that in. So let's get to it. That's turned out pretty well so far with only the 60 grit. I am going to hit it with a 120 grit sandpaper that I have here and then see how that goes. And then maybe I'll go from 120 to 180 and then 220. We'll see. I know it kind of seems a bit crazy to do that, but we'll just see how it turns out. I've never really done this before, so I want it to look perfect if I can. Okay, that's the last bit of sanding for this. I've actually now just hit that with 220 and then I've wiped it down with some acetone. And I made sure when I was sanding that this line came back because on the other side there's this nice little crease right here from factory, so I want to make sure that that was there. And yeah, it turned out pretty well so far. Again, that's just a fiberglass, so I haven't even put any body filler on it or anything like that. So that's the next step, is I'm going to apply a little bit of body filler just to get rid of these little spots here. I think maybe where some air bubbles must have got in. After sanding this down with 320 grit, this is how well it's turned out. And I must say, this is pretty good for my first time ever done this on a vehicle. I'm actually quite surprised on how well it turned out, and I'm actually looking forward to painting this to see the final result. Well, I'm going to end today's video here, and I just want to say I didn't want to turn this into a long 30-minute video about me just using blasting media to remove rust, because again, that can become very boring after a while. So trying to keep it short and sweet for you guys so that we can get bored, and then also trying to give you an idea what it's like to work with, you know, on the material. And especially, I've never even used this before. I've never used blasting media before. I've never used baking soda or glass beads to remove rust on a vehicle. And then also having to just spray everything down to make sure it's clean and ready for paint, which I will be getting ready to do in the next video. I'll be continuing to do a bit more sanding and then also get into the paint, and then hopefully pretty soon get into undercoating, which I'm looking forward to very much. I also just want to say thank you very much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to hit the thumbs up button down below. And if you aren't subscribed to the channel, be sure to do that now so that way you don't miss any future videos like this one and also car reviews on my channel. And until next time, take care. Bye now.